Lucas Marshall, a wealthy and arrogant man, agreed to a bet that would change his life in ways he never expected. He was used to winning in business and in life, and competition fueled him. But when his close friend Jack made a bold challenge. At a lavish New York party, Lucas was intrigued. Jack smirked and threw out the challenge. "Let's see if you can win this one, Lucas. I bet you wouldn't have the guts to marry a woman who doesn't fit your usual type." Lucas, known for dating beautiful women, was taken aback. But always eager to prove himself, he raised an eyebrow and asked, "And what's the prize?" With a mischievous grin, Jack raised his champagne glass and said, $1 million, to the winner. But you have to marry her and stay married for at least 6 months. Lucas, feeling the rush of competition and the appeal of a financial challenge, agreed without hesitation. The woman Jack had in mind was Khloe Richards, someone who didn't fit conventional beauty standards. Lucas didn't know her, but to him, it was just another deal to win. Days later, Lucas received more details about Khloe. She was confident, independent, and strong-willed, nothing like the women Lucas was used to. This intrigued him even more. Used to being in control, he wondered how he would handle someone who wouldn't bend to his will. Their first meeting took place at a luxurious restaurant. When Khloe arrived, Lucas immediately noticed how different she was from anyone he had ever met. She didn't seem intimidated by the fancy setting or by Lucas himself. Instead, she met his gaze with firm confidence. "You must be Lucas Marshall," Khloe said directly as she sat down. "And you must be Khloe Richards," Lucas replied with a controlled smile, extending his hand. She hesitated briefly before shaking it with a strong grip, showing her determination. "Let's not beat around the bush," Khloe began, her tone straightforward. "I know why we're here. I know about the bet, the terms, and the conditions." Lucas was surprised by her bluntness, but didn't show it. "And yet, you still agreed to meet?" he asked, curious about her motivations. Khloe paused for a moment before answering. "Let's just say I have my reasons. I'm not naive, Lucas. 6 months may seem short, but a lot can change in that time. If you think you can manipulate or control me, you're mistaken." Lucas smiled. Khloe was proving to be more of a challenge than he had anticipated, which only made things more interesting for him. As their first meeting ended, Lucas found himself increasingly intrigued by Khloe. She wasn't like anyone he had met before. She wasn't afraid of him, and that piqued his curiosity, even admiration. Days passed, and Lucas couldn't stop thinking about how to approach the next step. He was used to being the master of the game, but now it seemed Khloe had her own moves. Their second meeting took place at a simple cafe, a far cry from the glamorous restaurants Lucas usually frequented. Khloe had suggested the spot, and Lucas, curious, agreed. He wanted to understand who she was and why she had agreed to what seemed like a temporary contract of marriage. When Lucas arrived, Khloe was already there, sipping tea with a calm smile. She greeted him warmly, without the coldness of their first encounter, but still carried herself with that same unshakable confidence. "I thought you preferred 5-star restaurants," she said. Khloe teased as Lucas sat down. "Sometimes it's good to break the routine," Lucas replied, trying to sound casual, though he felt slightly out of his element. They chatted for a while, exchanging surface-level details, but Khloe quickly got to the point. "If we're really going through with this, I want to make a few things clear," Khloe said, placing her cup of tea on the table. "I'm not interested in your money or your luxury lifestyle. 6 months is 6 months, and I plan on walking away from this exactly the same as I entered." Lucas watched her carefully. He knew she was being honest. Khloe was the type of woman who knew what she wanted, and clearly, marriage wasn't something she saw as a way to climb the social ladder like many others might. "So, what do you want, Khloe?" Lucas asked, genuinely curious. "Freedom," she answered without hesitation. I want you to know that even though we're entering into this agreement, I won't be controlled by you. I have my own life, and that's not going to change because of a temporary marriage." Lucas smiled. It wasn't the answer he expected, but at the same time, he didn't mind granting Khloe this freedom. To him, marriage was just a formality to win the bet. If she wanted to keep her independence, it wouldn't bother him. "Fine," Lucas agreed. "6 months? After that, we go our separate ways." Khloe watched him for a moment, as if wanting to be sure he really agreed to the terms. She had accepted this challenge with a plan in mind and was determined to ensure everything went according to her wishes. Deep down, she knew Lucas might try to manipulate the situation, but she also trusted her own strength to resist his influence. The meeting ended on friendly terms, with both leaving with their roles clearly defined. Khloe would keep her independence, and Lucas would ensure that the marriage was nothing more than a formality. But as the days passed and the wedding date approached, Lucas couldn't help but feel that maybe this game wasn't as simple as he had imagined. The wedding took place in a cold, unceremonious manner, like a carefully orchestrated business contract. Lucas Marshall, with his strategic mindset, already saw himself as the winner of the bet. He was certain that the 6 months would fly by, and that Khloe, no matter how stubborn, would eventually give in to the luxurious lifestyle he was about to offer her. Right after the ceremony, Lucas took Khloe to his massive penthouse in the heart of New York, a monument to his wealth. The huge glass windows reflected the city lights, and the interior was filled with the most expensive and exclusive decor. To him, this was the real battleground, where he would win Khloe over through the power of his material world. But from the very first moment, Khloe made it clear she wasn't going to back down. As soon as she stepped into the penthouse, she maintained a distant demeanor. The look she gave Lucas wasn't one of admiration, but of defiance. "6 months, Lucas. Not a day more," she said firmly, walking over to one of the large windows, looking at the city without being impressed by the luxury around her. Lucas smiled, confident. He was used to this kind of resistance in the beginning. Every woman that had been in his life eventually bent to his charm and wealth. Khloe wouldn't be any different, or so he thought. In the first few days after the wedding, Lucas tried everything to impress her. He showered her with expensive jewelry, designer clothes, and luxurious trips, all with the expectation that Khloe would start to adapt to the lifestyle he dictated. But to his frustration, she refused it all. Khloe insisted on sticking to her simple, modest routine, never giving in to the trappings of wealth. "I don't need these things, Lucas," she said. She would say with a calmness that only made him more irritated. It deeply bothered him. Lucas, who always got everything he wanted, was seeing his authority challenged for the first time. It wasn't just about the bet anymore. Now it was personal. He had to win Khloe over somehow. He needed to prove that in the end he was the one in control. That's when he started playing more aggressively. He stopped her from going to work, offering reasons like, "You don't need a paycheck anymore," or "Your role as my wife." When Khloe insisted, he made her wait for hours for meetings she thought were important. Lucas manipulated schedules, situations, everything to maintain control. But Khloe didn't give in. She was a solid rock against Lucas's attempts, and that only intensified his desire to break her. Their relationship began to turn into a minefield. Small provocations surfaced, in trivial conversations, where Khloe, with sharp words, diffused every attempt Lucas made to make her feel inferior or controlled. On one particularly tense night, Lucas tried a more emotional approach. "I don't understand you, Khloe," he said, staring at her with a mix of frustration and curiosity. "Any other woman would be happy to live this kind of luxury, but you act like it's not enough. What do you really want?" Khloe, who had been impassive until that moment, finally lifted her eyes, and they gleamed with an intensity Lucas hadn't expected. "What do I want?" I want respect, Lucas. I'm not a piece on your chessboard. You think you can control me with money, but you're wrong. Money doesn't buy dignity or integrity. You might have all these things around you, but you're empty inside, and that's what you can't stand. Her words hit him like a punch to the gut. For the first time, Lucas felt that he might be losing more than just control. Khloe wasn't just resisting his power, she was dismantling the facade he had built over the years. And that scared him. No one had ever challenged him like this, and the fact that Khloe saw beyond his wealth made Lucas feel exposed. But instead of backing off, Lucas decided to tighten his grip. He started making plans to isolate Khloe, to make her realize that without him, her life would be much harder. He cut off contacts, closed doors that could advance her career, and even sabotaged important events she was organizing. However, Khloe wasn't the type to be easily intimidated. With every blow, she stood back up, more determined than before. She held on to her dignity, refusing to be shaped by Lucas. And then, one night, Khloe played her own card. "Lucas, you think you're in control, don't you?" she said calculatedly. "But what you don't know is that I have a plan too. And believe me, when the time is right, you'll see. This whole game is built on something much bigger than you ever imagined." Lucas stared at her, surprised. For the first time, he realized he might have underestimated Khloe. And for the first time, he felt the fear that, in the end, he might not be the winner of this game. The weeks went by like a tightly stretched rope, growing tenser each day, ready to snap. Lucas, in his obsession with control, tried every way to manipulate the situation to his advantage, but Khloe kept resisting, without flinching. She was like a fortress he couldn't tear down. Every attempt he made only seemed to reinforce her inner strength. But there was something Lucas couldn't deny. As time went on, he started to see Khloe differently, and Lucas found himself at a crossroads. What had started as a simple bet had turned into something far more complicated. It wasn't just about winning anymore. It was about understanding, about vulnerability, about something he couldn't quite name. Khloe had dismantled his carefully constructed walls, and now he was left standing in the wreckage, unsure of what to do next. One evening, as the sun set over the city, casting a golden glow through the penthouse windows, Lucas approached Khloe. She was sitting by the window, her face illuminated by the fading light, her expression calm but unreadable. "Khloe," he began, his voice softer than usual. "I need to know. What is this? What are we doing?" Khloe turned to him, her eyes steady. "This was never just a game for me, Lucas. I accepted this marriage because I saw something in you, something you've been hiding from yourself. I wanted to show you that there's more to life than control, more to relationships than power struggles. But you had to figure that out on your own." Lucas felt a lump form in his throat. For the first time, he allowed himself to truly listen, to let her words sink in. "And what if I'm just starting to figure it out now?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Khloe smiled, a small, knowing smile. Then maybe this wasn't a waste of time after all. As the final days of their 6-month agreement approached, Lucas realized something profound. Khloe had never been his opponent. She had been his mirror, reflecting back the parts of himself he had buried beneath wealth, arrogance, and control. And for the first time in his life, Lucas Marshall felt something he hadn't felt in years: hope. The bet had changed him, but not in the way he had expected. It wasn't about winning or losing anymore. It was about discovering who he truly was and who he could become. And as he stood there, looking at Khloe, he realized that the real prize wasn't the $1 million or the satisfaction of winning. It was the chance to start over, to build something real, something that didn't rely on control, but on trust, respect, and maybe even love. When the 6 months finally came to an end, Lucas didn't feel the triumph he had anticipated. Instead, he felt something far more profound: gratitude. Gratitude for the woman who had challenged him, who had refused to bend, and who had shown him that sometimes losing control is the only way to truly find yourself. And as Khloe walked away, leaving the penthouse behind, Lucas knew one thing for certain. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning, his voice trembling. I didn't know. I never meant to. Khloe cut him off, her voice sharp and unyielding. You never meant to? That's the problem, Lucas. You never stopped to think about the consequences of your actions. You destroyed lives without a second thought, all in the name of success. And now, you're standing here, shocked that someone could hold you accountable. Lucas felt the weight of her words like a crushing force. He had spent his entire life building an empire, believing that his wealth and power made him untouchable. But now, faced with the raw pain in Khloe's eyes, he realized the cost of his ambition. The lives he had ruined, the families he had torn apart. It was all coming back to him in a flood of guilt and regret. Khloe, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm sorry. I didn't know about your father. I didn't know about any of it. If you had known, what? Khloe interrupted, her voice cold. Would it have changed anything? Or would you have just moved on to the next deal, the next victim? Lucas had no answer. He stood there, stripped of his defenses, his carefully constructed facade crumbling around him. For the first time in his life, he felt truly powerless. Khloe took a step closer, her eyes blazing with a mixture of anger and sorrow. You think this was just about revenge, Lucas? It wasn't. It was about justice. About making you see the damage you've caused. About making you feel even a fraction of the pain you've inflicted on others. Lucas swallowed hard, his throat tight. And now that you've done that, what happens next? Khloe's expression softened slightly, but her resolve remained unshaken. Now you have a choice. You can continue living the way you always have, chasing power and wealth at the expense of others. Or you can change. You can use your resources to make amends, to help those you've hurt. But that's up to you, Lucas. I've done what I came to do. With that, Khloe turned and walked away, leaving Lucas standing alone on the balcony. The city lights stretched out before him, but for the first time, they offered no comfort. He felt hollow, the weight of his past actions pressing down on him like a leaden blanket. As the days passed, Lucas found himself unable to shake Khloe's words. He replayed their conversation over and over in his mind, each time feeling the sting of her accusations more acutely. He began to see his life in a new light, not as a series of victories, but as a trail of destruction left in his wake. For the first time, Lucas Marshall felt the urge to change. Not for Khloe, not for the bet, but for himself. He didn't know where to start, but he knew he had to try. The man who had always been in control now found himself at the mercy of his own conscience, and for the first time, he realized that true power wasn't about domination. It was about redemption. And as he stood there, staring out at the city he had once ruled, Lucas knew one thing for certain. The game was over. But the real challenge, the challenge of becoming a better man, was just beginning. She began to dismantle Lucas's world piece by piece, not through confrontation or anger, but through calculated, deliberate actions that left him reeling. She canceled his credit cards, redirected his calls, and even rearranged his schedule without his knowledge. It was as if she had taken control of his life, and Lucas, for the first time, felt what it was like to be powerless. One evening, as Lucas sat alone in the penthouse, staring at the city lights, he realized the depth of his mistakes. Khloe's silence wasn't just a punishment. It was a mirror, reflecting back the emptiness of his life. He had spent years building an empire, but now, faced with the consequences of his actions, he saw that empire for what it truly was: a hollow shell. Desperate to make amends, Lucas tried to reach out to Khloe again. This time, he didn't try to justify himself or explain away his actions. Instead, he simply said, "I'm sorry. I was wrong." Khloe paused, her hand on the door, and for a moment, Lucas thought she might turn around. But she didn't. She simply nodded, a small, almost imperceptible gesture, and walked out, leaving Lucas alone once more. The days turned into weeks, and Lucas found himself changing in ways he never thought possible. He began to take responsibility for his actions, reaching out to those he had wronged and trying to make amends. It wasn't easy, and the road to redemption was long and fraught with challenges, but for the first time in his life, Lucas felt a sense of purpose. Khloe, meanwhile, continued to live her life with quiet determination. She didn't forgive Lucas, not yet, but she watched as he struggled to become a better man. And in those moments of vulnerability, she saw glimpses of the person he could be, if only he allowed himself to change. As the 6-month mark approached, Lucas found himself standing at a crossroads. The bet that had started it all was coming to an end, but the journey it had set in motion was far from over. He knew that winning Khloe's forgiveness wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, he was willing to try. And as he stood there, staring out at the city that had once been his kingdom, Lucas realized that the real victory wasn't in control or power. It was in the courage to change, to face the consequences of his actions, and to strive for something greater. Khloe had given him that chance, and for that, he would be forever grateful. The game was over, but the journey was just beginning. "Khloe," Lucas began, his voice trembling with a mix of frustration and desperation. "I know what you're doing. I see it. You're tearing me apart, piece by piece. But why? Why are you doing this? If you want me to suffer, fine. I'm suffering. But what's the end game? What do you want from me?" Khloe turned to face him, her expression calm, but her eyes burning with a quiet intensity. "What do I want, Lucas? I want you to feel the weight of what you've done, not just to me, but to everyone you've hurt along the way. You think you can just apologize and move on, but it doesn't work like that. You don't get to decide when the pain stops. I do." Lucas clenched his fists, his frustration boiling over. "So what? You're going to destroy everything I've built? Everything." "I am? Is that it? Is that your idea of justice?" Khloe stepped closer, her voice low and steady. "Justice? No, Lucas, this isn't about justice. This is about accountability. You've spent your entire life building an empire on the backs of others, never once stopping to think about the damage you were causing. Now you're finally starting to see what it feels like to have your world crumble around you. And you hate it, don't you? You hate feeling powerless. You hate not being in control." Lucas stared at her, his chest heaving. She was right. He hated it. He hated every second of it. But more than that, he hated the fact that he couldn't fix it. He couldn't undo what he'd done. Khloe's expression softened slightly, but her resolve didn't waver. "This isn't just about me, Lucas. It's about you. You need to understand that your actions have consequences. And until you truly face that, until you stop trying to control everything and everyone around you, you'll never change. You'll just keep hurting people." Lucas sank into a chair, his head in his hands. "I don't know how to fix this, Khloe. I don't even know where to start." Khloe watched him for a moment, her gaze unreadable. Then she turned and walked toward the door. "Maybe that's the point, Lucas. Maybe you're not supposed to fix it. Maybe you're just supposed to live with it." As she left the room, Lucas felt a wave of despair wash over him. For the first time in his life, he was truly lost. He had no plan, no strategy, no way to regain control. All he had was the crushing weight of his guilt and the knowledge that he had brought this on himself. In the days that followed, Lucas began to withdraw. He stopped trying to fight Khloe's silent war, stopped trying to win her back. Instead, he focused on the one thing he could control, himself. He started small, reaching out to those he had wronged in the past, offering apologies and restitution where he could. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Khloe watched him from a distance, her expression unreadable. She didn't forgive him, not yet, but she saw the effort he was making. And for the first time, she allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, Lucas Marshall was capable of change. But the road to redemption was long, and the scars of the past ran deep. For both of them, the journey was just beginning, and subtle. When Khloe walked into the kitchen later that evening, she paused, her eyes lingering on the bouquet. For a moment, her expression softened, but she quickly masked it, turning away as if the flowers meant nothing. Still, Lucas noticed the slight hesitation, the way her fingers brushed against the petals before she walked away. It was a small victory, but it was enough to keep him going. The next day, Lucas woke up early and prepared a pot of strong coffee, just the way Khloe liked it. He left it on the counter, along with her favorite mug, and retreated to his study before she could see him. He didn't want her to feel pressured or cornered. He just wanted her to know that he was paying attention, that he cared enough to remember the little things. Khloe didn't acknowledge the coffee, but Lucas noticed that she drank it. She didn't thank him, didn't even look in his direction. But the fact that she accepted it, even silently, gave him a glimmer of hope. Over the next few weeks, Lucas continued to make small, thoughtful gestures. He didn't expect anything in return. He just wanted to show Khloe that he was trying, that he was willing to put in the effort to change. He left books he thought she might enjoy on the coffee table, stocked the pantry with her favorite snacks, and even rearranged the living room to make it more comfortable for her. Khloe, for her part, remained distant. She didn't acknowledge his efforts, but she didn't reject them either. It was as if she was testing him, waiting to see if his actions were genuine or just another ploy to regain control. One evening, as Lucas was cleaning up after dinner, Khloe walked into the kitchen. She stood in the doorway watching him for a moment before speaking. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice calm but laced with skepticism. Lucas turned to face her, his hands still wet from the dishes. "Because I want to show you that I'm serious," he said quietly. No, I can't undo what I've done, but I can try to be better. For you, for me." Khloe studied him, her expression unreadable. "And what if it's too late? What if nothing you do can ever make up for what you've done?" Lucas swallowed hard, his heart aching at her words. "Then I'll keep trying. Anyway," he said, "because you deserve that. Because I owe it to you." Khloe didn't respond right away. She just stood there, her gaze piercing, as if she was trying to see through him. Finally, she nodded, a small, almost imperceptible gesture, and walked away. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a start. And for Lucas, that was enough. He knew the road ahead would be long and difficult, but he was willing to walk it, one small step at a time. As the days turned into weeks, Lucas continued to show Khloe through his actions that he was committed to change. He didn't push her, didn't demand anything in return. He simply tried to be better, to be the man she deserved. And slowly, so slowly, Khloe began to let her guard down. She didn't forgive him, not yet, but she started to see the effort he was making. And for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, Lucas Marshall was capable of redemption. But the scars of the past ran deep, and the journey to healing would take time. For both of them, the road ahead was uncertain, but they were finally moving in the right direction, one small, thoughtful gesture at a time, the silence stretching out like a fragile thread. Khloe didn't speak right away, and Lucas didn't push her. He simply waited, his heart pounding in his chest, unsure of what she was about to say or do. Finally, Khloe broke the silence. "I've been thinking," she began, her voice quiet but steady. About everything. About us. About what you've done. Lucas nodded, his throat tight. I understand, he said softly. I know I can't undo the past, Khloe, but I want you to know that I'm trying. I'm trying to be better, to do better. Khloe looked at him, her eyes searching his face as if trying to find the truth in his words. I don't know if I can forgive you, she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. What you did, it changed everything. It changed me. Lucas felt a pang of guilt so sharp it nearly took his breath away. I know, he whispered, and I don't expect you to forgive me. I want you to know that I'm here. I'm not going anywhere, and I'll keep trying no matter how long it takes. Khloe looked away, her gaze falling to her hands, which were clasped tightly in her lap. I don't know if I can trust you again, she said after a long pause. But I think I want to try. Lucas's heart leapt at her words, but he forced himself to stay calm, to not push too hard. That's all I can ask for, he said gently. Just let me show you that I'm serious, that I'm not the same person I was. Khloe nodded slowly, her expression still guarded, but with a hint of something softer beneath the surface. Okay, she said quietly. We'll take it one day at a time. For the first time in what felt like forever, Lucas felt a flicker of hope. It wasn't much, but it was a start. And as they sat there together, the distance between them slowly began to shrink, one small step at a time. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but for the first time, Lucas felt like they might actually have a chance. And that was enough to keep him going. He understood that Khloe's words weren't a promise of forgiveness, but they were a glimmer of possibility, and for now that was enough. I don't expect it to be easy, Lucas said, his voice trembling with emotion. I don't deserve your forgiveness, Khloe, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn your trust again, to show you that I'm not the same man I was. Khloe looked at him, her eyes searching his face as if trying to gauge the sincerity of his words. It's not just about trust, Lucas, she said quietly. It's about understanding, about realizing that your actions have consequences and that those consequences don't just go away because you're sorry. Lucas nodded, his heart heavy with the weight of her words. I know, he whispered, and I'm ready to face those consequences. Whatever it takes, Khloe. I'm not running away anymore. For a long moment, they sat in silence, the rain tapping softly against the windows. The air between them was thick with unspoken emotions, but for the first time, it felt like they were on the same page. Khloe wasn't ready to forgive him, but she was willing to let him try. And Lucas knew that was more than he deserved. As the days turned into weeks, Lucas continued to show Khloe through his actions that he was serious about change. He didn't push her, didn't demand anything in return. He simply tried to be better, to be the man she deserved. And slowly, ever so slowly, Khloe began to let her guard down. She didn't forgive him, not yet, but she started to see the effort he was making. And for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, Lucas Marshall was capable of redemption. But the scars of the past ran deep, and the journey to healing would take time. For both of them, the road ahead was uncertain, but they were finally moving in the right direction, one small, thoughtful gesture at a time. That surprised even himself. I know this is unexpected, and I don't expect you to welcome me, but I wanted to come here and apologize. I destroyed your business years ago, and I know that my actions caused you and your family a lot of pain. I can't undo what I've done, but I want to try to make it right. The man stared at him, his expression a mix of shock and disbelief. For a moment, Lucas thought he might slam the door in his face. But then, the man stepped aside and gestured for Lucas to come in. The conversation that followed was difficult. Lucas listened as the man recounted the struggles his family had faced after losing their business, the financial strain, the emotional toll, the years of rebuilding. Lucas didn't interrupt, didn't try to justify his actions. He simply listened, absorbing every word. When the man finished, Lucas spoke again. "I can't change the past, but I want to help you rebuild. I've set up a fund to support families like yours, people who were hurt by my decisions. It's not much, but it's a start." The man looked at him, his eyes narrowing slightly. "Why are you doing this?" he asked, his voice tinged with suspicion. Lucas took a deep breath. "Because I've realized that the life I was living, the person I was wrong. I hurt a lot of people, and I can't keep running from that. I want to be better. I need to be better." The man studied him for a long moment before nodding slowly. "It's going to take more than money to fix what you've broken," he said. "But it's a start." That visit was the first of many. Over the following weeks, Lucas reached out to others he had wronged, former employees, business partners, even competitors. Some turned him away, unwilling to hear his apologies. Others listened, their skepticism slowly giving way to cautious acceptance. Khloe watched all of this from a distance. She didn't say much, but Lucas could see the way her expression softened when he told her about the families he had met, the steps he was taking to make amends. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something. One evening, as they sat together in the living room, Khloe broke the silence. "You've changed," she said quietly, her eyes fixed on the book in her hands. Lucas looked at her, his heart pounding. "I'm trying to," he replied. "I know it's not enough, but I'm not going to stop." Khloe closed the book and set it aside, turning to face him. "It's not just about the money or the apologies, Lucas," she said. "It's about showing that you understand what you've done, that you're willing to face the consequences and do the hard work to make things right." Lucas nodded, his throat tight. "I know," he said, "and I'm ready to do that. For you, for them, for myself." Khloe studied him for a long moment before nodding slowly. "We'll see," she said softly. "But it's a start." For the first time in what felt like forever, Lucas felt a flicker of hope. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but he was ready to walk it, one step at a time. And as he looked at Khloe, he knew that no matter how hard it would be worth it. Because she was worth it, and so was the man he was trying to become. This story is a powerful tale of redemption, love, and second chances. Khloe and Lucas's journey from a bet-driven marriage to a genuine, loving relationship is both emotional and inspiring. Khloe's decision to forgive Lucas and give their relationship a real chance is a testament to her strength and willingness to see the good in people, even after enduring so much pain. Lucas's transformation from an arrogant, self-centered businessman to a man willing to face his past mistakes and make amends is a compelling arc. His efforts to rebuild the lives he had destroyed and his commitment to becoming a better person show that true change is possible, even for those who seem irredeemable. The ending, with Khloe and Lucas starting a new chapter together, is heartwarming. It's a reminder that love and forgiveness can heal even the deepest wounds, and that second chances can lead to beautiful new beginnings. What do you think? Did Khloe make the right choice in forgiving and marrying Lucas? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your perspective. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more narratives like this. Thank you for watching.